Welcome to Namefi podcast. Namefi is a blockchain technology company that tokenizes domain ownership for trading, DeFi, and an ownable internet. We regularly hold Twitter spaces and have conversations with our founder friends, partners, and community members. We turn our conversations into this podcast channel. If you like it, follow us on Twitter at Namefi_IO. NAMEFI_IO, and join our next live NamefiSpace. Thank you.
Maybe a week or two into the journey of starting the company, when we had less than 4 employees, something like 30 people from the tax department showed up at the front door.
But coming back after a few years and then after the world gradually recovered from a pandemic, I think it's time for us to give it some credit.
I think the world cannot ignore Bitcoin and India. That's pretty much it, yeah.
To kickstart, I think Victor already introduced what Namefi does, but just to introduce again, so Namefi tokenized internet domains on chain, meaning the .com domains, .xyz domain, all the ICANN accredited domains. We now support over 350 ICANN accredited domains on chain, and it's a RWA. And we think there's a synergy between Unocoin and Namefi because Unocoin is it's one of the largest crypto exchanges in India. So RWA is definitely the potential for the next bull cycle. If not this one, because maybe AI is taking too much hype in this time. And I think how we got here is that we are really inspired by Unocoin's story of defending itself before Supreme Court in India. And I think a month ago, Uniswap, they received the wealth notice from the SEC, and I think 6 days ago they responded by a 43 pages letter response before the SEC. So I think it would be quite inspirational to hear how Unocoin defend itself before the Supreme Court, and it would be useful to open source this effort to other people, especially in the RWA space, to learn how crypto builders deal with regulations in the space. And the second point would be the discussion theme of today would be how Namefi and Unocoin could work together to push RWAs forward. So Victor, do you want to kickstart by asking the first question?
Yeah, we're very honored to have co-founders, CEO of Unocoin, Satvik here, and then also our great friend, co-founder Sunny Ray of Unocoin. First question is, maybe for Satvik, what inspired you and your co-founders to found Unocoins? How did you meet each other? What was the original idea?
So, I mean, me and the other co-founders, except Sunny, knew each other from quite long time. But when Sunny was organizing meetups about Bitcoin and crypto in 2012 and 13, I happened to go to one of those meetups. And then I took my other friends as well, Harish and Abhinand, to that meetup. So, and we found that to be a market opportunity where we have like Coinbase in US and Bitstamp in Europe and Mt. Gox in Japan. So we saw that to be a market opportunity where there is no such platform to serve India. And eventually, that made us to start Unocoin in 2013.
Yeah, Satvik, thank you for answering. What was the original vision when you saw the huge opportunity and you decide that the co-founders want to build business together? Can you shed a bit more light on the vision back then?
Yeah, so in 2013, through that meetup, we happened to see a business opportunity. So where we can service India, because people actually at that time, even though we could tell great things about how Bitcoin was, etc., there was no way that buy and sell it. And it was happening like a Satoshi Square where people who are coming to the meetup are hoping like there will be another person in the meetup who can buy and sell Bitcoin. So this eventually did not work in the because it's literally like um, without any kind of them knowing each other, they were trying to trade. They were trying to trade a lot of bitcoins at once and such, and those were happening in cash to some extent. So that made us to think like we have to put together a platform which eventually is completely compliant and also that we should provide a secure and safe environment for them to buy and sell Bitcoin, right? So this made us to actually launch a conference as well at that time, 2013. And in the conference, we launched Unocoin. And we have about 2.4 billion customers so far. So the vision eventually has been like to provide access to billions of people to this kind of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and that made us to continue standing strong and servicing people. So right now we only serve Indian customers, though. Yeah, that's like a very very long story, but in short. As far as the vision is concerned and why we had ended up starting it, I think that kinds of covers it.
Yeah, and Victor, maybe Sadhik, I think you're on the move, right? So maybe I'll just fill in the blanks here a little bit as well, Victor. So in terms of the vision, right, which is what you're asking about. So I mean, it started very small, right? It wasn't like some ginormous vision. It was us just being excited about Bitcoin because at the time that's all there really was. And then, recognizing obviously that Bitcoin is going to have a very bright future. And then when you couple that with kind of India, right? And again, a couple of I would say key points are, Bitcoin is referred to as digital gold, right? A lot of people don't know, but Indian women own more gold than the United States government, right? Gold is not just cultural, it's religious. It's, it's in every way you can imagine. For weddings, for inheritance, when people get paid on the week or whatever it might be, they take their money and turn it into gold. So gold is something that is, I would say, almost like beloved in India. And so when we started looking at Bitcoin and going, hey, okay, well, this is essentially a digital gold. And then when you marry the concept of the love for gold with the ability and the capacity to recognize the digital element of it too, right? Again, India having probably more engineers than any other place in the world, with more smartphone adoption and all of that, it became kind of clear to us early on that Bitcoin and India were kind of like an inevitable bet. Yeah. So again, to Satvik's point, things started off kind of small and just, with Bitcoin meetups and whatnot. But the reason we were all there in the first place and, we started the business was mainly because we knew that if we could do something in Bitcoin and serve a need, then we could build a big business down the line in the future. Yeah. Does that answer your question, or do you have any follow-ups, sir?
Yeah, that definitely answered my question. What I hear is that there's definitely an opportunity and a business need, and also culturally, Indian culture worships and cherishes the gold and preserving gold, right? I think that's a way to kind of preserve value, and also it's very important in the culture, as you said, and having a way to have to preserve digital gold. That's I guess what Unocoin enables your user to do. I think that's like very very amazing story. Who come up with the name of Unocoin? We love names. Namefi is in the business name, so every time we come up and we love the name, we ask how did you come up with that name? What does Unocoin entail? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll answer that one really quickly. So I picked up that domain mainly because I am still very much obsessed with Bitcoin. And when I discovered it, I couldn't help but feel that it was like essentially the future of money. It was the one, kind of currency that potentially might someday displace the US dollar, and gold, I guess prior to that, was what most of humanity used. And we felt like it was the one. And so as many people know, uno means one in Spanish. My wife is from Colombia. And so, it just kind of stuck from there. But it's essentially just being very, very bullish on Bitcoin.
Cool. Do you still only service Bitcoin, or did you service other chains later? When was the moment when you say, okay, we're going from Unocoin to like Unocoin of every coin.
Satvik, do you remember when we introduced other chains and other coins? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was in 2018.
2018.
Yeah. So that is when actually the altcoins were taking the priority, and it was slowly acquiring market cap. So I think till 2017 or so, the Bitcoin itself was covering at least 70-75% of the market cap, and so 2018 when we started seeing a lot of new coins getting into the market as well, started becoming quite popular and started growing. So all of that, yeah, I think 2018 is when we introduced. 2018 is when we introduced all other various chains and some of the number of tokens. By end of 2018, we almost had about 60 plus coins. I think.
Was there a moment that, of course, you see a lot of new coins coming up, and then that's like a reasonable, rational business decision to make? But was there any like emotion or any like feeling that, okay, are we going to like be different? Like, is there a company cultural difference as you move from one coin, like big Bitcoin Maxi, to multiple coins supporting it? Is there any mindset difference? How well is it the company dealing with this?
I think it is not about cultural difference, but till then we were totally promoting just Bitcoin. Not that we only want to promote Bitcoin, just that is what we were offering to our customers, right? So now the biggest question was, are we sure we want to expose our customers to so many type of coins? What if they get confused? What if they get scammed, etc.? But eventually, I think that is what actually stopped us from say 2016, 17 also. In those 2 years, we were just being very, very cautious of whether we want to introduce other coins and tokens or not. But by starting of 2018, it was very, very clear that it is mandatory because the customers are asking for it, and it also like the traders are getting the required maturity to understand what is an exchange, what is a brokerage, and what is an order book, and so all of that. So till 2018, we were just the normal brokerage, and from 2018 onwards, we also introduced the exchange along with about 60 plus coins that can be traded among each other. Yeah.
That's cool. My next question would be maybe that would be a little bit with Sunny. So what was the like along the side you were like you went through multiple cycles, right? Starting from 2013 all the way to today. It's more than 10 years. You celebrated your 10-year anniversary already. What was a few challenging moments that you have been through?
Yeah, I would say quite a few. Maybe something I'll start, but you can maybe fill in the details. So we launched Unocoin at an event in Bangalore at a conference that we hosted called the Global Bitcoin Conference in, what was that, Satvik? December 2013. And it was quite a big deal. We invited, fellow entrepreneurs, the media. We had, even government officials and really just people, enthusiasts, people from all over kind of the spectrum across India that came, lawyers. So I remember at that event when we, kind of showcased Unocoin to the world, we had a gentleman from the Reserve Bank actually show up at the event. And I remember him saying to us, hey, look, we'd prefer if you guys didn't mention us being here at this event because, we'll simply stand up and leave, if you were to do that. And so wasn't the most, pleasant welcoming, I would say, but it was what it was. And for us, we knew it would be difficult conversations, but something like Bitcoin isn't going to go anywhere. And we felt it was important to be open and transparent. And then, soon thereafter, I would say, Satvik, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe a week or two into the journey of starting the company, when we had less than 4 employees, something like 30 people from the tax department showed up at the front door. Satvik, you want to tell that story since you were right in the thick of it?
Yeah, they were the revenue department, so who are doing the investigation for taxation purposes and to check whether we are maintaining the records properly. So yeah, it was a 1 day long questioning about how we are doing things, because at that time that ours is the first platform in India, and none of the department have any clue of how we plan to run the business. Right, so they quite took some records and such, but generally it was more like them trying to understand. There hasn't been enough time. Enough time is not over for them to even do any kind of tax audit or anything like that, right? It's just like a week or two. So eventually, that ended up quite well. And at the same time, there was also a notice from Reserve Bank of India cautioning users, saying that yes, we know there is something called cryptocurrency and Bitcoin that exists, but we are not responsible for any kind of losses, etc., etc. So that made us to start rethinking: are they trying to tell something to us subtly, right? So then we had to pause the operation for a few days, take the clarification from the lawyers, and again get the business back on track. And in fact, Reserve Bank of India have given that kind of notice another 3 or 4 times. And in 2018, they gave the notice to the bank saying that the bank should stop supporting the crypto exchanges like ours to help doing the fiat cash in and cash out. Right, so that had to be fought for about 2 years, the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in India, and finally we became victorious.
But Satvik, maybe before jumping to the end of the conversation, maybe build up a little bit, because I think that's kind of what Victor was super interested in. So first of all, it was 3 instances, right, that they had issued that notice on their website prior to 2018. So do you want to maybe talk about, I don't know, what you were feeling during that time, like how it actually went down, and what encouraged you to actually fight? Because I think most people would coil into a fetus position and start crying.
Yeah, I think it is just about like every notice is more or less the same context, saying that Reserve Bank of India telling we are not responsible for anything you do with cryptocurrency, and no one is responsible. So it has lot of volatility, so you could lose your money. It has security issues, it has legal issues. So it's like quite new to India, right? So we definitely did not have the knowledge of what we have today at that point of time itself. So every time it was coming, our hopes were going high and low, high and low. But on the other side, it is the same warnings that we give to our customers as well, that it is risky, you could lose your money, it is speculative, it is just technology driven, it is completely digital in nature. So I think it's just like they were doing their job on one side, but on the other side, we continued doing or building our business to more and more number of customers, I guess. So that's how eventually it kind of grew up till 2018, when again the things started becoming like quite different. So you want to add anything?
So what happened after 2018? Maybe you could explain the whole situation there, because it was like a 2-year-long court case, right? I think where it started in the High Court and worked its way up.
Before diving in, let me clarify. The first part was actually regulators from the tax department coming to the office, and then I guess their allegation was more about tax, right? Like whether you are paying enough tax or whether your clients are paying enough tax.
Yeah, that's correct. I think they more wanted about the data we are collecting from the users, so that when required, the taxation system can make sure that the customers are paying taxes, because we are unregulated in nature. So what data we collect and what we don't actually matters a lot to them, and they wanted to make sure there is enough data for them to calculate the taxes for our customers accurately. I think that's pretty much the initial context. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that just reminded me of the US law enforcement trying to kind of ensure all the privacy. Of course, they will ask for KYC requirements to make sure customer investors are paying tax they need to, but also for avoid like money laundering purpose. And one thing that it reminded me is the law enforcement activities about Tornado Cash. Right? I think it's like a similar reason, like the government naturally has a sense of responsibility, has a demand for information to make sure that people who either owe tax or people transact are held accountable for their transaction. But this also goes into the dilemma for like the need for privacy or the need for the customers to do their own freedom thing. So that was like one of the early conversations you had with regulators. And because they're a tax department, I would assume they only show up when it's a bull market, right? Like when it's a bull market, they show up, and because they deem other people might owe more tax on that time. So is that correct?
Yeah, exactly, Victor. So that in the initial response was regarding taxation, but like Satvik was saying, the RBI, the Reserve Bank, actually issued a notice shortly thereafter, after we started in 2013. So I think it was in the first month of 2014. That notice then got reissued a few times throughout the next couple of years. And then it all culminated to the 2018 kind of the notice that was put on their website instructing other banks to shut down banking services for crypto exchanges.
Yeah, so that's the part I'm even more interested. Like regulators from the banking systems in India, that would be the central bank. Let me make sure I said the right
Yeah,
name.
that's correct.
Yeah, the central bank, right? And to my impression, India's financial system is actually pretty advanced. Like many of our audiences in US and Europe, I don't know if that's a common knowledge, but when I work in Google and I happen to work with mingle with some of the teammates who work in payment system, and they told me about like India's financial system, like UPI, unified payment interface, and a bunch of other innovations, the financial ecosystem being pushed by India government and banking system. It's very advanced, and they're very tech savvy, to my impression. And no wonder they're starting probably the activity of regulative enforcement earlier than many governments in the world. So I was, yeah, even with that expectation, I was pretty surprised that they send you the first letter the first month when you launch it, and then over time have done it multiple times. Yeah, that's my feeling.
And the letter wasn't sent to us, just to be clear. It was put on their website as like a notice to the country. Yeah. Pretty much calling out two main concerns. One was around security, and the second was around, and not security as in like investment security, but more like security of like being able to not have assets stolen, et cetera, et cetera. And the second was more around just the volatility of this industry.
Yeah, and now that you say it about security, we're talking about the other side of security later. But when you talk about like cybersecurity or the safety of fund, like the time when you launched, it was like 2013, right? That was like 2 years after Mt. Gox's Bitcoin exchange breakdown and collapse. So probably a lot of people still have vivid memory back then. Do you get that kind of question from early customers? Like, how do you make sure that you have the best technology and best in place mechanism to avoid things like malgaps? Like, I guess everyone who started a crypto exchange after Gox will need to answer those questions. Like, did that concern ever come up from anyone, like customer side?
Yes, I think. Do you want to respond to that? I mean, I'll take it over just in case he's still on the move there. But yes, definitely, security is something that has been top of mind for our team from day one. Even if people don't necessarily ask for it, they kind of. It's one of those things where people don't necessarily ask, but it's once you get hacked, or if you get hacked, then things get really hairy, right? So we knew that was kind of one of those make or break moves where if you're not looking at security, so in our industry, I think they're pretty standard. So you have cold storage, you have two-factor authentication, and all these other kind of like ways that you can protect your Bitcoin. And for companies like ours, we follow industry standards, just like Coinbase and other big companies. But I don't think it was something that the market was necessarily clamoring for. They were more like, hey, we just want to buy Bitcoin and hold it. But it was more something internally as a team we were quite conscious of, that it was something we had to get right. I think the fact that we're in business 10 years later without any major breaches, speaks to the fact that that's something that's of utmost importance.
Yeah, well, of course, other people will also have question about like the other kind of security, right? That's like the big buzzy word in this industry. Early days, people didn't even know whether Bitcoin is considered security. And by security here, we refer to the definition of, in the United States, when we talk about it, it would be like what's defined in the 1933 Security Act, and investment contracts that requires registration with SEC. Is there a similar concept in India? And it seems like, is it the central banks regulating it, or is there any authority regulating it? Like, what's the landscape there about protecting Indian consumers, especially retail investors?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, Satvik, feel free to jump in. Yeah. I'll just maybe touch on it. So there's a lot of different departments. It can be pretty confusing, right? So the RBI is the Reserve Bank of India. That was the one that we had the court case against. They're the central bank. They print the money. There's the tax authorities, right? So that's another entity. That's another kind of conversation in itself. You have an entity called FIU, which is the Financial Intelligence Unit, and they're the ones that have been tasked, I would say more recently, maybe in the last like few years, they've been tasked to essentially identify and mitigate risks along the lines of money laundering, and also just essentially KYC and all that AML stuff falls under their purview. And then when you talk about securities, like the SEC equivalent, let's say, it's called SEBI. Now, SEBI, for by and large, has been pretty hands-off in India. However, in the last, I would say, maybe few weeks or so, there's been some news coming our way saying that the SEBI will be now looking to essentially have oversight over crypto trading in India. And so that's something that's still incoming. It's not super clear. In fact, I'll share a link with you here, Sunny and Victor, so that you guys can maybe post it on the top here so that people can read about it if they're interested. I'll share a couple of links with you guys.
Yeah, I'm sharing it here as well. The RBI Reserve Bank of India's Wikipedia page, and SEBI is Securities and Exchange Board of India. It's interesting because your main fight or your main defense was against the central bank, probably over their allegation or over their authority about regulating transactions from bank to the exchange, right? Did security ever comes up as a question? Like, did SEBI ever ask you a question about which coin that you list? Like, that's probably the biggest thing in US. And just like you said, the authority is also very vague in US. Like, there are people taking different stance on whether SEC have the authority over certain tokens based on what's defined for them. So did that ever come up as a conversation in Unocoin's journey?
Like I said, no, that's something that's now becoming more prevalent. Yeah, like most of the past has been, I would say, the RBI thing. Like I said, the central bank. And by the way, I just shared the two links there, both for SEBI, which is the more recent announcement, along with the link to the actual verdict from the court case in 2020. So I think both of those will give your listeners, some more context in terms of the actual lay of the land. But no, to answer your question, in short, it's the SEBI is only now starting to indicate interest in the space, and given all the kind of news in the US and whatnot, it's still kind of incoming. Yeah.
So see, I mean, there is again nothing is set in stone, but they have said that they are willing to become the oversight of this entire industry, and help us regulate the crypto trading activities. So, but I have not very clearly seen like how they will be doing or anything like that. So that's kind of still yet to be figured out. And it also looks like when it comes to stable coins, it could be RBI who would want to step up and be a regulator. So we'll end up with two regulators, one for normal crypto and tokens on one side, and on the other side the stable coins. So we will have to wait and watch eventually how this all figures out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I just learned that you mentioned that SEBI is kicking me in, and it's interesting. It didn't ever come into as a question about which coin is security, because that's the main conversation in the US about the regulating crypto. Let's come back to the question, the discussion about the bank. So, what was the verdict like? What did the Supreme Court find that Unocoin was right? And how did they order the RBI behavior to change? Can you share a little bit?
In simple words, see, crypto is never banned in India. Has been never banned in India in the past. Okay, so it is just the Reserve Bank of India who is trying to put restrictions on the banks, which they regulate, that they should not provide the banking services to the cryptocurrency exchanges and their customers. And it was very unconstitutional. So that's what we fought for on one side. And on the other side, if it is not declared as anything like outlawed or illegal in India, then using the banking services is the right of any human in India. So that's how the law here says. So based upon these two grounds, yes, we fought, and we were able to win it. So when it comes to the human who is getting affected, so it had to be our other co-founder, Mr. Harish, who had to declare that yes, he is getting affected due to this particular restrictions from Reserve Bank of India on the banks, due to which he is now not able to liquidate his crypto assets and take the money back to his bank account, and that he has just invested very recently in the past, etc. And when it comes to unconstitutional angle, so the Supreme Court as well actually saw pretty much all the different self-regulations we had to undergo, and how we make every transaction through bank accounts, and how we take care of the KYC of the customers, which at that time it was already closer to the banking standard, and now it has only become stricter and stricter. So yeah, eventually all of this, but court proceedings usually take much more longer than expected, where we were thinking we'll be able to get this victory in about 8 months to 10 months. It actually took about 2 years, and eventually we became victorious in the month of March in 2024. Yeah, so it was a very exciting journey on one side to argue and win it, but on the other side, this also meant there is not enough volumes and customer base at Unocoin, which made it extremely challenging to continue running the business. And we went into the burn mode, where we just have to make sure the skeleton is in place so that we can get back to business as soon as possible when this restriction goes away. But on the other side, yeah, without much of revenues, we had to completely manage the business from end to end with just the hopes that we will get the justice. Yeah, it was very comparatively challenging times. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad that you went through that very, very challenging time. I just shared to the audience in this space a blog post from Unocoin.com sharing the long undercredited defense that was like 3 years ago. It was in March 4th, 2020. India's Supreme Court ruled in Unocoin's favor, and it's the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, the central bank, ordered them to lift the bans on banks from facilitating crypto exchanges. To me, this is a huge victory. As we discussed, it was funny, Sunny. We discussed this. The world didn't get to know too much about this because 2 weeks later, it was publicly announced that the world is in an urgent pandemic. Wow, I haven't said the word pandemic for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, all the news, all the attention is about fighting the pandemic. Of course, that's life and death issues. But coming back after a few years, and then after the world gradually recovered from the pandemic, I think it's time for us to give it some credit that one of the earliest, highest defense in the one of the largest economy and the largest democracy in the world, India, where there is a place to argue whether the bank has the authority and can do regulations and can interpret regulation in certain way. I think it's a very special moment when I heard that. So what was your first personal feeling, Safvik and Sunny? Maybe you want to share like the moment when you hear the verdict. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it's as soon as the Supreme Court verdict came out, it was literally the pandemic news broke down here as well in matter of just about like 2 weeks, I guess. So, and like I said, our team was entirely becoming less skeleton. We only had about 14 employees out of about 120 we had at our peak, right? So now we had to literally like hire people and train them. All of that we are doing almost for the first time, and everyone is just working from home. So that became like quite challenging on one side, and on the other side, because there was not much of upgrades we had to do, we could do to our systems and such. So that made that created a lot of technical debt, which means our entire say tech stack was quite outdated because it was not upgraded for about 2.5 years already, right? So that needed quite a bit of modifications as well. But on the other side, the biggest challenge was to actually like hire employees, go to the next step. And now, like I said, because we went into the burn mode for those 2 months, for those 2 years, we were actually left with no more money. So literally with close to about zero money or maybe like negative money. So we are trying to hire new employees and then training them up and ramping up our servers and getting business online, right? So that was a very, I would say, challenging times that continued there. And at the same time, there was also a different competitive landscape that happened in India, right? So there were a few companies which launched during this court issue was going on, and there was also a couple of companies which launched or pivoted into becoming an exchange as soon as we did win the case with the against the RBI. So that quite added up a bit as well, and now we are fighting against the competitors who actually have quite a bit of money, and we without money and we without employees, while the competitors does have it, and trying for the new work from home for the first time and trying to ramp up our team and technology. So yeah, 2021 2020 was quite a challenge, but on the other side we were also able to raise some money in that particular year itself. So we had a round that was led by Tim Draper, which was our Series C round. So that helped to some extent. And by mid 2021, we started working from the office, and the things started falling into the place. And yeah, we are here where we are, I guess. Sir, you want to add something?
No, I mean, just to, I guess, emphasize that, things did end off on a positive note, right? Tim Draper, I'm sure a lot of people probably know him. He's an investor in Tesla and SpaceX and some of the most prolific companies ever. And so he had been, actually his son invested in us, Adam Draper, in 2016. And so, he had been tracking us for some time. And so it was really reassuring to see him support Unocoin. And yeah, really proud of Satvik and Harish and our team for fighting through that. I mean, Satvik, I would love to know what gave you the courage, right, to fight. I guess that was the main thing, because I mean, it's kind of a David versus Goliath story, and yeah, like what gave you that hope?
No, see, I mean, India, this technology has a lot of potential, and I think this technology matters for the country, right? So, where it's like you say, it's one of the biggest inward remitters, and people come with the savings mentality, they love gold, and we were pushing for digitization, and we have a very good smartphone penetration and English. Well-spoken country as well, and internet penetration was getting good. I think everything required for a industry like this to flourish and also to take the best possible leverage. I think this industry had to stay alive within the country, and the Reserve Bank of India notice was a threat for it, I think. I mean, at various points of time, there was different threats, put it that way. But we being the believers that this technology actually have a great future, we wanted to make sure that India do not lose out on this. And yeah, that made us to just continue pushing and making sure it stays alive. And I think by now, or right now as we speak, the industry has grown comparatively to be a much bigger giant, and it is not as fragile as how it used to be about 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago when we actually started the company, I think. So it's quite well advanced, and we also have enough examples from developed countries of how they are embracing it. So I don't think that the challenge is like the exactly same right now. But when it was small, of course it should be protected. It's like a baby, right? So you want it to grow into an adult one step at a time. So yeah, there went all of our efforts, and making it to stay alive and making it thrive. I think that's what gave us the required courage, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, what an amazing story. I think that's a moment of the time and moment of the encouragement we have for all the crypto builders who tried put in our heart and soul and trying to build the right things for our customer. I think your story gave us a lot of courage. So looking forward, as we started to I think one of the question I had before is what was the moment when you moved from one Bitcoin only Unocoin to having 60 or other tokens. What do you see in the future? What was the main emphasis down the road? There's a lot of discussion, by the way, about bringing more assets on chain, like their T-bills, RWAs, and a bunch of others. And NameFi, we tokenize domains, and we believe it's one of the most important and early pilot kind of assets to be brought on chain. What do you hope to see to happen on chain, and what kind of assets do you wish to start to introduce more into Unocoin? Can you share a little bit of that into us?
Yeah, I think we're quite agnostic when it comes to what kind of assets we want to list. on Unocoin. But one thing we just make sure is that because of the confusions that already exist, our customers should not end up losing too much of money. And they should be a little cautious, etc. as well. So, due to which we have been careful of which tokens to list. But apart from that, so we do encourage tokens belonging to various industries. So which movement where we want to take it on Unocoin platform for listing purposes, I guess. But however, while doing our due diligence, we also go through the information like tokenomics, the background of the founders, how big the community is, what is the market cap looking like, and if those tokens have been listed on other exchanges. So we do have maybe about 8 to 10 different such criteria. But once those through are there, we will take it up for listing purposes on Unocoin. Yeah, so we don't restrict. If our customer is asking for it, we definitely take into consideration. We do our due diligence and research and try to bring it on the platform as soon as possible. So that's generally how we work. Yeah.
And Victor, we I think partnered with Unstoppable Domains, so that's kind of, I guess, somewhat related to what you guys are doing at Namefi. So it's definitely something that we're open to. AI is another big area that we're looking at right now. I think. I mean, whether you like it or not, memes are obviously taking over the world. But just to sum up, I think we're at the end of our time here. I think the main thing is that India and Bitcoin, if those are the two areas where the Venn diagram meets, is where Unocoin sits, and crypto, or India, you can call it. And we're very bullish on the future of it. So looking to partner with you guys and others and, build a bright future. But thank you for inviting us on your show, Victor.
Definitely. Thank you, Sunny and Satvik. I think we're getting to the end to our time. Satvik, if there's anything you want to say to the audience or to inspire us.
I think the world cannot ignore Bitcoin and India. That's pretty much it, yeah.
Absolutely. The world cannot ignore Bitcoin and India. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. This is a wonderful conversation. For all the audience, this is like a last minute, like a party spun up. And we're very, very grateful for Sunny and Satvik to come on to this Twitter space. We're going to hold this kind of space in the future as well. If you like it, please follow Namefi, follow me, and follow our distinguished guests. Like always, stay tuned and look forward to have a conversation with you next time.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Having this conversation. Thank you.